Successful creators are regular people who have learned to moderate their emotions. What I mean by that is that they're regular people. They're not different from you or I. They're just people. They have their own personality types. They have their own ways of talking about things. They have their own way of operating in the world. But the difference with successful creators is that they've learned to moderate their emotions so that they can show up every single day over a long period of time on the internet. The only way to be successful as a creator in 2026 is to show up on short form video. I'm fully convinced of that. I've been working with creators since 2013. I've worked with all the big creators since then, like all the name brands that you would think of. Well, not all of them, but almost all of them. And I would say that right now, in this moment, the only way to grow is to have short form content. It has to be short form content. It has to be you talking to a camera about things that matter to you. Now, why is that so important? Why is that so difficult? It's difficult because showing up and talking about things that you care about and then giving people the opportunity to not engage with that is very difficult emotionally. And if you don't have ways of regulating yourself, you're going to fall off. You're not going to be consistent. And now you have to be consistent for multiple years in order to break through. Typically, what I see from folks is it takes at least 2 years, sometimes more like three, to actually build up a full time income creating content. And I think creating content is the only way to become a successful entrepreneur in 2026, unless you're going to go out and raise a bunch of funding so you can do all kinds of ads and things like that. But even then, you look at those people and they still have an online presence. They're still driving traffic. They're still driving engagement from the way that they talk, especially on video, whether it's long form podcast, short form video, whatever it may be. Anyways, I do think that the thing that helps you break through in 2026 is to have a lot of short form content very consistently over a long period of time. Typically, when I talk to people who are building up their following, they're trying to get established, they post 2 or 3 or 4 times a day, every single day for multiple months at a minimum. Like after 3 months, they start to see whether or not it's working. After a year, they start to get some significant traction. After 2 years, they're able to go full time on it, sometimes three. And that's a really, really long time. And so I think learning to moderate your emotions throughout that process is super important. Now, how do you actually do that? The best advice that I've heard from people who have learned to successfully moderate their emotions is that they really focus on the quality of the content they're posting. They focus on what it is that they're talking about and how well they can convey their ideas and their stories through content. That's their main focal point. Yes, of course, they are affected by the views. If there's 100 views on one and then a million on the next one, the million feels better. But the extent to which it feels better is less broad. Eckhart Tolle is one of my favorite thinkers in the kind of self help guru space. And he talks about launching his books and he talks about getting on Oprah. He talks about all these amazing benefits that he has. He's sold like millions and millions of books. But what he says is that when he was on Oprah, that was a little bit extra good day. The next day, when nobody really knew who he was almost the same amount of a good day. Like they were both good days, but the Oprah day was a little bit better. And I think that's where people get to when they learn to moderate their emotions, which allows them to show up in this world where it's so volatile. Like you could post very similar pieces of content. I mean, one does 20,000 views and the next one does 20. I know creators that I've spoken with personally where they'll do two different reels that are very similar. One gets 1.5 million views, the next one gets 27. It's absolutely bonkers. We're in this interest based, algorithm based, kind of uncertain world where you don't have the guarantee of knowing every single thing that you produce is going to be seen by anybody. Even if you have followers now, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that anybody's going to see the content that you create. Now, I do think that as this relates back to business, it is pretty relevant. I've been running a business for 14 years now. We do over 3 million in annual recurring revenue. And one of the things that I've had to just kind of come to terms with and accept for myself is that most days don't feel like you're making any progress. Most days, you just feel like you are putting in the grind and you are not seeing any results. What ends up happening is you have these many, many, many days, sometimes years, where you don't really see any progress. And then all of a sudden, you see this huge step change. And within the course of months, sometimes like a year, you have this massive jump. But then it kind of goes back to this gradual again for many, many months, many, many years after that. For us, we've had a couple of big jumps, And in between those big jumps, there's 5 to 6 years where there was just every day building, every day continuing to improve, every day continuing to get better. And I think what people miss is that you don't see that. You don't see the everyday improving, every day getting better. They just see those big jumps. Same for me. When I'll post our, results where we had this big jump and it's time to celebrate, tons of engagement. But then there may be 2 or 3 or 4 years before we have our next big jump. And in that time, I think people just forget the fact that you're working exactly the same amount as hard during those years as you are in the years when there's the big jump. And there's not necessarily anything miraculous about what happened during that period where you had rapid growth. You're doing the same things. And I think it's also, the climber, Alex Honnold, likes to talk about how he did that free solo. He free soloed the face of El Cap. And he did that. And then the next day, he was just out climbing again, maybe at a gym. And it's just the fact that what he really enjoys is the process. He enjoys getting better at what he does. Yes, it was an especially good day when he free soloed, but then the next day was marginally less good. And I think marginally is the important thing, because if you are riding the highs and the lows, where you are riding the high of that huge success, you're also going to ride the low. And when you ride the low, you're going to give up. And I've seen this so many times. Like I said, I've been doing this 14 years. I've seen so many people just give up, and they actually don't give up when they fail. They give up when they are successful and then they fail. They give up when they've actually seen some traction. And my favorite one is like the 3 week give up, because typically when somebody posts content for about 3 weeks, somewhere in there, you're going to get some like actually decent traction. You'll get a video that gets a few hundred views if that's kind of the niche you're in, depending on your niche, right? Like maybe a few thousand, something actually decently significant, an outlier. And then you see around that 3 week mark, they have 2 or 3 videos in a row that don't break 100 views. And then they go silent and they just stop. It's just like, yeah, it wasn't actually the fact that you failed that made you give up. It's the fact that you succeeded and then you failed. That's when you give up. And I think that running a business for a long time, and I do think, again, that building a business in 2026 is posting short form content. Like there's just no ifs, ands, or buts. Like it's just what it is. If you're going to run a business now, you have to do that. Of course, you still have to build out a product suite. You have to build out your whole marketing system. You have to build out your back end. You have to have a business on the back end that you're funneling into. But if you're going to reach people, it has to be through short form video. And if you're going to do short form video, you're going to have these swings, ups and downs. But again, I do think that that's just running a business. That's generally what it is. And the people that I've seen who end up being successful and sticking with it, I think the company that I'm the co-founder of, Interact, it falls into this camp. We've been around for 14 years. We've seen lots of competitors come and go. They chase the highs and then they feel the lows. And that's what ends up causing them to burn out, because they feel it when they've reached some level of success. And then that drop back down, like that quote, right? Like it feels 4 times worse to drop than it does to go up. So when you're going up, you're feeling that feeling. And if you feel it too much, then when you inevitably go back down, you're going to feel it 4 times whatever you felt on the way up. And if you are attached to those feelings, then you will give up, because it feels too bad. It feels too bad to have that down. But every business has that down. Every content creator has that down. I've interviewed, I don't know, probably 20 content creators now who have more than 1 million followers. And every single one of them tells me the same thing. They're like, yeah, there are periods when the algorithm is just not showing my stuff. There are periods when I'm having rapid growth, and then all of a sudden I have a decline. And those declines can last any amount of time, but the only way to get out of it is to continuously improve what it is you're doing, continuously improve the content that you create, continuously improve your systems and your product, continuously talk to customers and audience members and understand what it is that they need from you so that you can make your stuff better. If you don't do that and you check out emotionally because it's too painful, then I think that's where you end up actually giving up. And that's the great tragedy of it all, because you actually did have something valuable. You did create something valuable. And it's just because that feeling of the downward was too much to stomach. And I think that the people who I see who end up being successful creators, successful entrepreneurs, successful business owners, they're the ones that learn that you can't feel any of it too much. If you feel the ups too much, you're going to feel the downs too much. You have to enjoy the process that you can feel fully into. You can feel fully into the creation process. Am I getting better at my craft? Am I getting better at telling these stories? Am I getting better at what I do every single day? Am I getting more concise in the content that I create? Am I getting better at picking out stories that people can resonate with? Am I understanding my audience better? Those things, you can go in as much as you want on those. You can learn virtually a limitless amount on those topics. That's great because those are things that you can control. But the things that you can't control, like your view count, your revenue, those types of things, those are generally related. It's like that book, The Score Takes Care of Itself. It's a really famous book written by a football coach. And his whole thing was we never focus on scoring touchdowns. We never focus on the score. We focus on doing the little incremental things, and the score takes care of itself. There's also Olympian coaches who are famous for saying the same thing. If we can improve our output 1% every day, we will outperform the competition by massive leaps. And I do think this is just true across all of time. And now the new thing is content creation, short form video content creation, which is a skill. It's not, it's not this nebulous thing where it's just like, oh, you got to be some creative savant. It's not that. It's just a skill. It's something that you can improve on as long as you practice every day and take care of yourself physically. That's another thing that's just like so baffling to me about entrepreneurship over the years. People go into it and they push as hard as they possibly can. They push themselves way past their limit. They last 3 months on average, sometimes 6 months if they're like especially physically fit and healthy and all that kind of stuff. And then they crash because they do not take care of themselves physically. They don't have a good routine. They don't sleep. They don't exercise. They don't keep good, positive relationships in their life. They drop all that because they're like, I'm going to push, I'm going to grind, I'm going to make this happen. But again, the average amount of time that it takes to break through as a content creator is 2 to 3 years. So then what happens? You have this gap. Okay, you push really hard for 6 months, but the real cutoff is 2 to 3 years in. So if you don't last for that 2 to 3 years, you're never going to make it to the point at which you break through. So those are my reflections on successful content creators, which honestly is just successful entrepreneurs in 2026.